thank everyone for joining, specifically our esteemed panelists, because there's a wealth of knowledge here that we are going to be able to share with students today. And then everyone who's joining online, I hope that you get everything that you're looking for from this panel. I'm really speaking it up. So guys, panelists, I hope you bring it tonight, right? So let's just start. My name is Beatrice Tebano. I work with Northbridge Partners, and I am a portfolio director of portfolio manager here. Dean is our second moderator, and Dean will just talk a little bit about our initiative, Coffee Connectors. I'm sure you keep seeing the name Coffee Connectors every time you register. We're going to talk a little bit about what that is. Dean, do you want to jump in, tell them who you are, and talk a little bit about Coffee Connectors?
Thanks, B. I appreciate it. Do you want to go by B or Beatrice during this presentation?
We're all friends here, so you can call me B.
Okay, thanks, B. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Really give you just a quick background as folks are coming in on Coffee Connectors. Coffee Connectors is a project that Greg Lauze, who's right up there in the right hand of the screen, and B and Tammy and I have all been working on for a while now, but we're really excited about getting first gens into commercial real estate. I think we've all seen through different ways that commercial real estate can be very difficult to break into. And our goal here is to be a conduit, to be somebody that can help you get into the industry. And we're doing that through a couple of different ways. The first is by doing these panels and introducing folks to folks in the commercial real estate industry. The second is through Coffee Connectors, and Coffee Connectors is a program, and we're going to reach out to each one of you that signs up here with a way to join Coffee Connectors. It's a way to learn about networking skills and then to be able to network with these executives, folks that you're seeing on the screen. So we set you up with meetings for 20 to 30 minute coffees with executives in the industry. They are all excited to help out first gens and to help bring them into the industry. That's why they've signed up. We also have a podcast that's coming up, and Northbridge, we host a summer internship program just for first gens, and we're starting to promote that internship program at other commercial real estate firms all around. So thanks again. Take it away, B.
Of course. And so the reason why this is so important is because I'll give you a short little story. I went to an appointment this morning, and the doctor said to me, "Hey, you're in commercial real estate. Are you standing on your feet all day?" And I was confused about what she meant. And she thought I was a realtor. And I had to explain to her, no, that's not what I do for a living. And so that's why it's important for us to have these panels and to have these professionals really talk about what they do, because most people don't understand the different careers that are available within commercial real estate. And so I explained to her what it was, and I'm just going to do a quick explanation to everyone here. Yes, there are brokers within commercial real estate, but there are also other careers within commercial real estate. And what commercial real estate truly is right now is, let's take Northbridge as an example. What we do is we go out, we fundraise money, we use that money, and we usually fundraise to maybe family and friends. Let's say if it was a smaller fund, pension funds. So think about if you're a teacher, teachers get a pension. Once the money go into the pension, it then needs to be invested. Those pension funds invest in commercial real estate companies like Northbridge. And so then we go out and we purchase properties. We then add value to those properties. We sell those properties. And within that time frame, there are different careers that are helping to help those assets add value. So it's important for you guys to know what kind of careers live within this field, because I'll tell you for myself, I had no idea. I kind of fell into commercial real estate, which is why this initiative is so important to me. I don't want anyone to fall into commercial real estate anymore. I want them to know that there are careers that live within commercial real estate. And if you're interested, here are some of these careers, and we plan to do a few more of these events because this is just a really short amount of time, and we want to continue to introduce those careers to you guys. With that being said, We are going to go ahead and start and introduce you to our esteemed panelists tonight. I'm going to start with Greg Lauze. And what we are going to want to hear from you is your name, the company that you work for, and a pivotal moment that occurred in your life that helped shape who you are today, just to warm you up a little bit.
Great. Well, thanks, B, Dean, and for everybody, both panelists and students that are joining today. So my name is Greg Lauze. Dean and I co-founded this business, so I'm a managing partner alongside Dean. My position is more focused on the investment side, where we're looking at which investments to make, which ones not to make. And we can get into a little bit more of that later. As far as a pivotal moment, as Dean led, I was first generation to college in my family, and also sort of fell in like B to commercial real estate. And I feel very fortunate that I did. I feel like there was a bit of luck involved, and part of Coffee Connectors is trying to remove some of that luck and make it more purposeful. Pivotal moment for me was my parents filing for bankruptcy and losing their home. It had a deep impact on me in terms of what I wanted to do, both with my life in terms of being, trying to be self-sufficient and sort of, avoid that type of situation, and also help others break into what really was an old boys network, and we're trying to change that, kind of give everybody a fair shake at getting into this field, as everybody will sort of talk through today. It can be a very fun field to work in, and it can also be a pretty lucrative one. And so the intersection of those for me was great. You got to love what you do, and you also want to have a chance to build a better life for your kids and your family, and that's sort of the drivers for me.
Thanks, Greg. Megha, do you want to jump in? Same questions.
Sure. So I come from the architecture side, so my background is in architecture, and I think that it's very true of real estate, to everyone's point here, that there's a lot of different specialties that feed into real estate. It takes a lot of different folks to put a deal together. So I come from the design side. The moment for me that made me want to get into real estate actually was I was working on speculative projects in Dubai as an architect, and one day they decided to stop all of the projects, and so they laid off like everyone at the design firm, and it just seemed like a really obvious mistake that they could have avoided. And so I figured if they could do it, I could too. So that's why I'm here.
And Megha, remind us what your title is.
Oh, sure. I'm Vice President of Mixed Use Development at Hilco Redevelopment Partners. We have a lot of different types of projects, but I think our commonality between all the projects and the niche we kind of occupy is we generally work with former brownfield sites, power plants, more specifically, that we decommission, clean up, in terms of contamination and things like that, demolish, and then, now we're going vertical on a lot of these projects. So,
thanks, Megha. Tammy, do you want to jump in?
Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here with you all. My name is Tammy Tang. I work at Northbridge Partners with Dean and Greg. And a pivotal moment for me was actually going back a little further in history when in college I studied abroad for a year in the UK. For me, that was really eye-opening in terms of how people learn, how people live in, different perspectives. And for me, having the ability to live in a different country for a year and the challenges that came with that, and building friendships and relationships and getting used to a different style of learning, that really helped me think through how to work through challenges earlier in my life. And so, I still have really good memories from that.
Awesome. Nagib, you're up.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nagib Charles. Today is actually my last day at my company. So I was the director of operations really working on the property management side for the last 15 years or so. I've done a mix of property management and facilities, intentionally making moves to try to, challenge myself and learn more about buildings and how they're built and, what goes into them. Before that, I was in life science, so definitely more construction and facilities on that side. In terms of what is a pivotal moment, it's kind of tough to say. I feel like I've made a bunch of different moves, but I would say something a little different, joining BOMA, Building Operators and Managers Association. It's a trade organization, and it's just a really good group of people who are the ones who, to me, make buildings go. You've got your cleaners, your landscapers, the people who just you're going to run into every day. And so I've met a lot of really good people in that group, and continue to be friends with people, 10, 15 years later. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Nagib. And Patrick, last but certainly not least.
Yeah, no, nice to meet you all here, even though I can't see you all. I know you're here. Patrick Kimble, founder, managing partner at Cast Capital, which is a alternative investment firm that I recently launched, spinning out of the Davis companies, where I've been a VP here for the past 4 years, but saw an opportunity to build my own investment management business, where essentially we're looking to fill the gap and co-invest alongside strategic operators and developers like Northbridge, and bring an element of diverse capital coupled with institutional capital to deals that folks primarily of color, both men and women, a diverse background, don't typically have access to. So we're trying to do that at scale here. A pivotal moment for me, similar to Tammy, actually came earlier in my life. I am the product of the MECO program, which is a desegregation busing program founded on the backs of the Civil Rights Act back in 1964. I'm a graduate of that program once I realized the history, probably right before high school, to be honest. Grew up in Boston, and you're waking up at 6 a.m. to catch a bus to go out to Lincoln and Lincoln Sudbury. I realized that my journey was a little bit different. So that was probably a pivotal moment for me.
And that's great. And as I promised, we have an esteemed group of panelists today with very impressive titles. And I think the next step is really to break those titles down. The goal of this is to help you guys understand what everyone actually does within their title and career. So Greg, let's start with you. You mentioned that you work within the investment side. So let's dig into that a little bit more. What does that mean exactly?
Sure. So investment side, or if you see and talk to people in our industry, sometimes called acquisitions, because we were looking to acquire new properties. And I won't steal all of Tammy's thunder because I know she's got the same as me, but I'd describe it as this. We are looking at in Northbridge, we work on warehouses, but it'd be the same if you were doing apartments or office buildings or life science, whatever it be. We're looking at which properties or which land sites that we like. So obviously, for the old acronym, location, 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 that is true within commercial real estate. But there's also other nuances. We're looking at financial models, trying to decide, is this a location we want to be in? Is this a building that we like? How is it laid out? How is it structured? What type of capital do we have to put in? And then most importantly, price, right? So what is the price that we're willing to pay for this asset? As B said, our strategy and many strategies within real estate is to earn current income on our investment, but also make it worth more and sell it for more in the future. So that's a simplified way of thinking about it. But really, at the end of the day, we're looking at buildings that can generate cash flow and hopefully more cash flow, more rent in the future. So what can we do to put in capital, increase that rent, and then ultimately increase the value? We have to decide which assets we like, which locations we like, and which ones we don't. So we look at a lot, hundreds, even thousands of transactions to end up buying, 20 or 30. So it's a lot of sifting through different assets, figuring out what we like. And I won't take up too much because Tammy does the same thing as me. And so I'll stop there.
Tammy, do you want to piggyback on what Greg is saying?
I do. And I think Greg covered a lot of the investment process that we go through in identifying good investments. But I think of my role as a relationship manager, in a sense that in order to get to these good investments, you have to build the relationships with the community, with the brokerage community, with, in order for us to make good investments, we have to find creative ways to get to the deal. My job is, and Greg's job is really in deal making, in sourcing, negotiating, structuring, and really, I think of my job less than my title, but my job is problem solver. Things come up day in, day out of new things. How do you process it? How do you solve around it? And the more efficient and the more simple way that you can find a solution, I think that gives you an edge in the deal making process. And that process is what's sort of driving the energy and the excitement in my job day to day. Perfect.
Megha, you also have an interesting title. Do you want to just talk a little bit about exactly what you do?
So I lead development for a specific parcel that we're working on. So development is a little bit of everything, but oftentimes we are coming in after acquisitions. In this case, acquisitions of a power plant / a piece of land. But we are doing permitting. Usually that's a big component of what we do. In the city of Boston, that's also very long and extensive. We are doing design, like early design that needs to coordinate with permitting. So we're kind of laying out the foundation of the project that's going to get built. And eventually we do also run the full design and construction process. We are kind of a little more of a conductor than a lot of other jobs in terms of having to work with a lot of different team members. So leasing folks, even property management folks, just to figure out like how to design the building so a property manager can manage it better in the future. But we are often hiring a lot of consultants to get us through the development process. So architects, contractors, lawyers, a variety of other consultants. But I think developers are often more generalists, and we're hiring highly specialized consultants to help us kind of address all the different aspects of a project.
Perfect. And you mentioned property management. So let's jump to Nagib, because he can just explain what that would look like if you guys were working together.
Yeah. So, for me, it's interesting, Tammy said it, but my job is to solve problems. That's all I do all day, right? They're larger and small, and the more you move up in the industry within the property management field, the bigger they get. So, for me, it's just like owning a home, and I don't know who of our panelists or attendees own homes, but it's just in a different format. So for us, we're working on trying to, in some cases, find tenants, or we'll work with brokers and they'll get us tenants. We've got to make sure they move in and they're happy with their space, which sometimes requires a little bit of construction, renovation, whatever that may be. While they're there, we want to make sure that we're fixing the building and making sure that they're happy with, the common area. Generally speaking, in the leases that my company deals with, they're situations where we would deal with the outside and they have to deal with the inside. But in a lot of cases, in your regular office tower, your regular property managers would do everything. So changing light bulbs, fixing toilets, cleaning the offices. And let's say you wanted to move, break down an office and build a mother's room, let's say, that's something that we would help with as well. So, all day long, it's really just, to me, making, we want to make our clients happy, make our tenants happy. And so, to me, I consider myself as somebody who's been in hospitality my entire career. Just like a hotel, you want to make your guests feel welcome. I feel the same way as a property manager. So, the game is one where there's 100 problems and every day you're going to get 10 of them. So the longer you're in it, the quicker you can solve those problems and hopefully move up and make more money and be more successful. But fundamentally, it's solving problems, and we try to do the best we can. Great
way to put it. And Patrick, break us down. What exactly do you do? Break it all down for us. What are you up to?
Yeah. So very similar to these guys, I'm in the problem solving business, but also in the value creation business, which it sounds like everyone else is as well, even though they may not have framed it in that way. at this point, especially with the Cass Capital lens, very much focused on doing everything. So when you're building a business, not only are you focused on the P&L, so making sure that you have the financial wherewithal to be in business, but you're also focused on building an investment strategy, which actively tooling or retooling all the time. You're underwriting new deals. You're spending a lot of time shaking hands and meeting people and developing your network and building that network while also recruiting talent. So a little bit of everything that folks have mentioned. But throughout the journey, before I arrived at this point in my career, I've worn a bunch of different hats. So started out, had a touch in property management. So got a sense of that, got a sense of asset management, which is really more managing the P&L and driving value after you acquisitions buys a property. And then also on the leasing end, where very similarly to the acquisitions role, you're kind of on the front end of new business. So after you go and buy something and we underwrite all this value, typically on the leasing side, you're actually looking to make good on the business plan in which you had put forth. So that takes a lot of collaboration, a lot of shaking hands. You're touring, you're giving a bunch of presentations, you're doing financial analysis to make those deals work, while also managing a lot of third-party relationships with executives and decision makers at respective companies and firms, along with brokerage teams, if you take that route to also hire third-party leasing. So a little bit of everything, guys.
That's awesome. And just as a reminder, the audience, will have an opportunity to ask these guys some questions. So towards the end, so just hold on tight. Now that we do know the panelists a little bit better, Dean, do you want to go ahead and get some advice for the audience from the panelists?
I think just a couple takeaways here. I mean, first, we've got this really amazing group of attendees that are first gen. They're coming from all different colleges around town. B has met with a lot of them, and some of them are former interns I see that are on here. I think, the big thing, the big takeaway that I'm hearing from everyone here is that there's a lot of different skill sets that work in commercial real estate. So one of the things that we hope you take away from this is, hey, if you love math and you love numbers, there's a great place in real estate. If you love people and you love sales, there's a great place in real estate. If you love design and architecture and art, there's a great place. And then I think the second thing is, and this really goes to the question, is it is a tough place to break into. That's what we're trying to help out with. So maybe start, Patrick, go back to you and just say, hey, you got a first gen audience here. What was one of the obstacles you faced getting into the business? And maybe what would you provide for advice to the folks that are on this call, this Zoom, that are really college and grad students trying to figure out a way to break in?
Great question. My path was a little unique. I was teed up right before graduation to go and work in investment banking, which is very different. So a pure classic finance type of career path. I was then introduced to the commercial real estate business by someone that was very close to me. They said, do not take that job. You should actually consider the commercial real estate business. So I went on that roadshow that everyone here has probably done, where you go and you meet people and you learn a little bit more and learn that there are no real solid opportunities in front of you. But I was blown away and got the commercial real estate bug and said, man, this is absolutely what I want to do. I like the people. I like, everything that they're talking about, but the opportunities, or at least career paths, weren't as straightforward as something in classic finance or something else. So with that, I would tell you, you got to go meet people and connect as early as possible. But then I would tell you to keep an open mind and not be afraid to take some risk, not knowing what's on the other side, because you never know where your opportunity is going to come from. So when I look at where I'm at today, or the things that I'm interested in and the areas of the business that I've been fortunate enough to touch very early in my career, that started with blowing up my first deal, which was indeed a job offer that I knew exactly what that was going to look like on the other side. So I guess the takeaway there is really take some risk, shake some hands, and don't be afraid to step into the unknown of not knowing where your opportunity is going to come from.
Great thoughts. And Greg, I'm going to bounce it to you up there. And I think some of the questions that we often hear is when we do these panels, folks are like, wow, there's a lot of terminology I don't know. So as you're giving advice for people trying to get into commercial real estate, what do you do when people are like, hey, I just don't know that much. I don't feel confident to sort of make those connections?
Well, first I'd say none of us had that knowledge when we all started. So we're in the exact same place that you are. One of the there's the challenge and benefit to commercial real estate. The challenge is what Patrick talked about. There's no set way to get into the industry. Like if you want to go into accounting, you go through the internship program, and then you apply for jobs, and then you get your first couple of years. So that's a challenge because there's no set way. It's also an opportunity because 99% of students coming out of school don't understand, the language of real estate. And so the opportunity there is you can get in my experience was, geez, every posting wanted 2 years of experience. And I was like, well, how do I get those 2 years of experience? Because, no, there's no set path in. And similar to what Patrick was saying, kind of it's a networking business to get in. And that's part of the reason we started this whole Coffee Connectors is one thing we can do is trying to open up our networks. And within that, it's talking to folks. There's a lot of just meet for coffee, hustle, and just get in front of people. When you don't know anything about the industry, the one thing you can control is your effort level, and just say, hey, I know I don't know anything. I don't understand this. How did you do it? And you'd be surprised at how many people will want to tell you their story, lend a hand if you're willing to, put in the effort and be flexible and meet them wherever they need to meet to make it convenient for coffee. And you keep doing that, and it gets frustrating. I've seen it over and over with, myself and young folks like, geez, I'm not getting anywhere. But then you've met with 30 people. They talk, oh, geez, Tammy met with all of us. She seems great. And then something pops up. And I'd say my advice would be just get your foot in the door somewhere and then show people what you can do. So just get that first job. It might not be the exact career path you want to be on, but at the end of the day, to Dean's point, you just want to learn the language, just absorb from being around people, listening to meetings, listening to Zooms. And it'll take a couple of years, but you'll pick up that kind of the language of real estate. And a couple of years later, you'll be old hat at that point.
Nagib, does that ring true for you? What are your thoughts on breaking in?
So, I mean, I love travel. I love meeting people, helping people. Again, I feel like I've just been in hospitality. My first job was working at Bruegger's. So, I went from there I went to work for a company called EF, thinking I was going to sell tours, and that just did not work out. Luckily, the woman who got me that, I worked with a recruiter. She got me that gig, and after it not working out, I went back to her, and what she did was she really helped me say, okay, you can do all of these things. Well, have you thought about this, right? Transferable skills. Just because you think, hey, this is my destined path, there may be actually a lot of jobs that you can do that somebody else can really key you in on. So, I think recruiters, career coaches, people who've been around can help look at what you do, what you're good at, what you want to do, and maybe offer some other suggestions. And so for me, it was a woman saying, hey, think about this. And, I started at the bottom. I worked at as a tenant coordinator at a building in Boston. And, I was the guy in the lobby who sat down and greeted people and said, hello, and how can we help you and whatnot. And, was with that company for about 9 years, and, slowly, rose up to the role of property manager. And so for me, that was my opportunity. It was somebody almost vouching for me after meeting with her and talking with her and really describing what it is I was passionate about and what I liked, and her kind of pointing me in that direction. So, whether it's an official recruiter or your college career coach or just somebody who's a little bit older, who's somebody, alumni network or something like that, somebody who can just kind of give you some game on what's going on. And in terms of picking up the lingo in the industry, I'm the guy who to this day, writes down words and phrases and whatever, and I'll go and Google. At least now, that's a thing. You can go in, you can do it in the meeting if you want to. So, you can be the person who just raises your hand and asks, or takes a bunch of notes and at the end of the meeting, does your work. Investopedia has been my friend for so many things in the past couple of years. So, don't be afraid, and I'll definitely mirror what Patrick is saying. Don't be afraid to just put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to ask for coffee or whatever it may be. I've had plenty of people from my high school and college just say, hey, can we meet for 10 minutes? And we're meeting for an hour. Especially when we get to, we're a little bit older, we can take an hour out of our day. It's not a big deal. We'll make it up somewhere else. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there, ask for coffee, ask for informational interviews, join trade organizations, get your face, have a LinkedIn. You should have that in 2023. And just be open and willing to, give of yourself and just be honest with what you want to do. And you'll find that a lot of people, at least, I've been in Boston my whole life, but people in Boston actually do want to help you if they think you're coming from a genuine place. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I still call Nagib and ask to pick his brain. So, I think it's a skill you have to learn at the beginning and you use it for the rest of your life. I mean, I call B too, when we're just comparing whatever it is, job offers or whatever else, it's really important to have peers in the industry. And, to echo everyone's point, this is a networking industry. And, as much as learning the lingo and stuff is really important, it's also really important to know other people who know those things too, because there's always more to learn. I mean, I think the thing I love the most about the industry, especially on the kind of complex mixed use projects I work on, is just it's never ending what I could learn and what I could know. And that is always a challenge. And as I've gotten further in my career, I've just learned to be comfortable with not knowing things and feeling comfortable asking people or making a friend to ask what something means or how important it is. And to everyone's point, I think in all my years of working and, networking, I've only ever had one person who many years ago turned me down. Everyone else has been more than willing to meet for coffee, meet for lunch. And it's a great way to learn new things. It's a great way to meet people. It will almost certainly lead somewhere over time. It takes time to develop those things and develop relationships. But I would say younger students, especially college students, have the benefit of being in a position where, you aren't really expected to know everything. So you can ask. You should feel totally open to ask for coffee, ask questions about things you don't know, and be a sponge,
I think that makes a lot of sense. And Tammy, we'll have you kind of round this out, but maybe with a twist on it. If you had to give yourself guidance and go into the proverbial hot tub time machine, go back in time and talk to your college self, what guidance would you give? And hopefully that's helpful for those listening.
For the sake of repeating, really put yourself out there. I think if I had to relive my first job out of college, is really putting myself out there. And I learned probably late in my career that it's really not about what you know. It's also about kind of the questions that you ask. So, particularly out of college, I think the expectations is you ask a lot of questions. So put yourself out there, ask the questions. I echo everything about building relationships, and you build them early. So, now is not a too late of time to start. I met Greg and Dean because I saw an article about what Greg and Dean were doing. I met them, I think, at an Eastdale event. And then I followed up with Dean and we grabbed coffee at Starbucks in Waltham. And that was a memorable start. And look at sort of 5 years from that point, we're here, and I had this great opportunity to work with them. So really just connecting the dots in those conversations and relationships, and know that it does take time. It does take time to build the relationships, but then when you have those genuine relationships, they do come through for you in life. And those are really two great things that's happened. But if I knew then, I think I would be. It'd be interesting how my career would have turned out.
Just piggyback off that one quick thought, just because I would tell myself that it's okay to say, wait, I don't understand that, because I felt like for the first several years of my career, someone would tell me something and I'd go, sure. And I'd be like, okay, I gotta go look this up. I'd just pretend that I knew it. And I think, just saying it's okay to say, I don't understand that. Could you explain that? It's a hard thing to do when you're trying to get a job, but I think it actually comes across to future employers as, they're really self-confident to say, hey, I don't know something. Can you explain that to me?
So I just want to, again, thank you guys for the advice, because these are like nuggets of gold that we didn't get. And so to be able to offer that to the audience is so great. I think the next step right now is to give the audience a chance to ask some questions and open it up, just so that we can hear what they have to say. We've said a lot, and I want to give that opportunity and open that opportunity up. So guys, if you guys have any questions, please use that question and answer box. We will be happy to answer some questions. If not, we have about 20 minutes left. We will be able to fill that up easily. I do see some questions coming through. Let's see here.
You can also raise your hand too, right?
Yes, the other option is to raise your hand, and we will be able to let you speak and ask your question as well. So those are your two options. And please don't be shy. This is the opportunity that everyone talked about. Networking, asking questions, really putting yourself out there. So please, go for it.
So the question is from Fiona. What do you think about investing in real estate with little money? Do you recommend using an FHA loan? Patrick, you want to take that one?
Yes, that's a great question, and I am very impressed. Was it Fiona?
Fiona.
That you're asking that question at this point in your life. I would tell you to do your due diligence, study the market, and if you have a good basis, which is a good price that you are comfortable with, do it. It's never too early to do your first deal.
Thanks, Patrick. Another question we have is, any advice for a college-age residential salesperson to obtain more commercial real estate deals in their market?
I think one of the ways to kind of look at more commercial deals is there's some sites, LoopNet or Craigsy, that is out there that you can register for and start to see a little bit of deal flow and get, most importantly, it's looking at the brokers or the people who are listing those deals and having conversations with them and seeing kind of what is in the market and getting to know the deals, the market, and the deal flow. So Craigsy, spelled CREXI. I think that's open for registration, and then LoopNet might be another avenue to kind of filter deals and start to see kind of what's out there.
Yeah, I'd add, if you're looking to broaden from selling residential to selling commercial, I would say one good transition point could be start small. You're trying to build it, like in any career with all of us, you're trying to build that track record, build that experience. So you could start with, say, a 3-unit or a 5-unit multifamily, and then push up to the next one. You get a reference, and maybe it's a small office building or a small retail center. Just kind of try and get 1 or 2, and that track record will help you build those references, do a good job for your client, and then you can kind of move there. So my advice would be to kind of start small, be incremental with it, and get some reps under your belt.
Great. We got some good questions coming in. So next questions is, what are some helpful resources that you think current college students can use to learn more about and gain helpful skills in commercial real estate? Megha, you want to start with that one?
Sure. There are so many online resources. I mean, I actually do think that making connections with people is a great way to learn things, because it's almost inevitable, but there's a lot of online resources. I mean, most colleges offer free open courseware. I mean, I know MIT does. Many years ago, I think even I use things like that as resources, just to help augment what I knew. But there's a lot of open coursework like that. I mean, if you can support it financially, there are sort of certificate courses. I know the BU one is a very popular one. And now I think more and more there are universities offering certificates and or just courses online, but definitely a lot of open courseware. And then, I mean, to someone else's point earlier, I forget who it was. If you are open to the kind of job you can get, that is really just the best way to learn. Doing almost any job in commercial real estate will help you learn things much more tangibly than any kind of coursework. So, even if it's not a job that's ideal for like where you want to go, it's if it's something you can kind of roll up your sleeves and learn on, it's valuable. There's a lot of different ways to get to where we all are today. So,
and then once you're in that job, even if you don't love it, you can now bounce around because you're now in the industry. So just piggybacking off of what Megha's saying. Another great question from Robert. Do you have any advice for a mid-career professional who wants to get into commercial real estate? Is the advice the same as for new college graduates? I think that's a great question. Anyone want to grab that?
Sure. So, let's say I don't know how old you would be when you say mid-career, but I think you've got a little bit more leeway to do what it is you want. So commercial real estate is this big kind of behemoth word. So, one is, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to be more on the financial acquisition side? Do you want to build buildings? Do you want to sell buildings? Do you want to manage buildings? Right. So first off, figure out what you want to do. The freedom that you have and the leeway that you have that a recent college graduate does not is that you've got references. You've got somebody who can vouch for your work, who can vouch for your way of doing things. And so I think we've all heard it, but it really is who you know. That's where those coffees matter. I'm in an industry, specifically with what I do, a lot of people are wanting to sell me things, right? So whether it's, I want to be your landscaper, your contractor, your electrician. And I've told people straight up, I'm not going to use you, but you never know. And 5 years later, I've got their number saved and I'm calling them for, $1 million worth of work over the course of a year. That came out of nowhere as far as they're concerned. But, again, making those genuine connections with people, go back to those people and find out, you have to do some of the work, but, once you kind of figure out what you want to do, you then go back to your network. So I think the best way to do it is to, you join a trade organization and you get involved with somebody who is doing some of the things that you're doing and maybe connect with them. Somebody out of college, you don't even know where to start, so you just have a head start in a way that they will never have. So, narrow down what you want to do, find somebody who's doing the thing you want to do, and then try to connect with them. And again, I'll use LinkedIn for that. And it's been a godsend for me. Use the social media, the more positive aspects of social media in that way to connect with people.
Great. Dean, do you have any favorites on here that you would ask?
Yeah, I think one of the questions that came on here that said, how would someone like myself get into this field? And I think it's also, how do you start investing in real estate? And I think a lot of folks would like to do some more local investings and they're trying to figure out how do you do that without capital, and would love to get your guys' thoughts. I mean, does that mean that you get a job somewhere and learn the ropes, or, how should you start thinking about being an entrepreneur?
I can take that question, or at least kick it off for the crew here. there's so many different ways, again, to become an investor early, right? So one thing I'll tell you, you can own real estate fee simple, which is you actually own that asset outright. You can also go and buy securities. So there are a lot of publicly traded real estate firms. So they're REITs, real estate investment trust. And you guys can Google that term and find a couple of tickers. But that's a great way to start investing in real estate passively. And you can, before you even place an investment, and you can do it with pretty minimal money, especially with all the different platforms today. You then have access, and even before you do that, to all the public filings that these companies have. So it's a good way to start getting familiar with the jargon while also having some skin in the game, while also following a particular company that is probably best in class at whatever it is that they're investing in. So that's a way for you guys to all own, at least in some way, shape, or form, a piece of the real estate asset class like tomorrow. From a entrepreneurship perspective, and I'm sure Greg and Tammy and Dean and everyone on this call, for that instance, would tell you the capital is going to follow a great deal. So I would be less concerned with the money and really do your due diligence around an opportunity that you really cannot sleep at night without doing more work on it. And then you be creative with who you want to call and figure out a way to put the deal together. That's the great part about this business. It's super entrepreneurial, regardless of what role you're in, or if you're within a company, at least to be super successful in the business. You got to have some level of entrepreneurial gene in you. So I would tell you, go find a deal and find a way to put it together. And that sounds pretty high level, but that's as straight as I can give it to you.
Yeah. I would just add one great thing about real estate, at least the career path that a lot of us have been on, is you don't you can do it yourself, where you have to come up with the money and buy your deals. That's at the far end of the entrepreneurial end. But you can also just get a salary job where you learn all of what it takes to invest before you ever have to put any of your own money at risk. And then ultimately, our business is set up, you've probably heard people say other people's money. What that really means is, when we build a knowledge base over many, many years, and the investors that B talked about, the police, the fire, the hospital pension systems, they don't wake up every day and look for real estate investments. So they're trying to decide who's been doing this day in and day out and has a competitive advantage. They know the real estate. And what that'll allow you to do is, in the fund business that the Northbridge is in, you might put up 1 or 2% of the total capital, and the investors will put in 98 or 99%. And that allows you to leverage, you're leveraging your knowledge, and you can get outsized, you can get up to 20% of the profit. So you put in 1 or 2%, you can get 20%. And why would someone pay that? Because they're not doing it every day as an expert. So, the most critical thing in my mind is you build that track record. If you don't have the capital, like I didn't, I was like, well, let me learn under somebody else's track record, learn all the mistakes that other people have made, all the things they did right. And then, eventually you start putting your money to work. So there's various paths within real estate where, I think that's a common misconception sometimes. You got to have capital to be in the game. You don't. You just have to have knowledge and start hustling.
I'd say one follow-up question on that seems to grab a lot of these questions about, hey, how do I learn about this? And Greg, I think that's a good point. When you get in and you have a job, you can really start learning each of the pieces and grow on that. Is there, for a college student, would you say if you had one book, one article, one website you would go to just start to engage in this? Does anyone have a resource that they like?
And Wednesdays, the Wall Street Journal comes out with a commercial real estate property report. When I was in college, someone told me to start reading that. I'm dating myself a little bit. There's probably much better websites, but the point is, I think you just read articles over and over again. So, I'm trying to think of BizNow is really good. You can get like weekly, daily updates from BizNow, and you can read those articles and just, just jot down the things you don't understand and then try and look up those concepts. I learned a lot from just reading and figuring out what I didn't know.
There was a website called, or a blog called, A Student of the Real Estate Game. I think I used to be connected to someone who was running it, but that just is, it's a blog, so it has lots of different articles about different things. But I'd also like to maybe answer that question a little differently, which is like, it's really important to find what you're interested in real estate, because there's never going to be a book that's going to be like, here's what you need to know. We all do way too many different things for there to be one book for everything. I mean, my book would be different from Beatrice's book. It would be different from Nagib's book. Everyone here is like so specialized that the book that they, would write would be different. So it's really important to find what you're interested in so you can, have a career in that. And it's something that's enjoyable to you. I think that's the most organic way to like find an opening into what you want to learn about within real estate. There's not really like one set knowledge base that's going to work for everything.
I'm going to steal one from Patrick. The public traded companies do publish an annual report, and there they always start with what type of business we're in. And they usually give very good descriptions about what the type of business, what they see in the world. If you enjoy a good read, those 10Ks can definitely be interesting and a learning resource. Peter Linneman is a professor at the Wharton School, and he has a really exciting title. I think it's called Real Estate Finance and Investments. But the way he approaches teaching is really through practical example. So it's less about learning how to think about the cash flows and the numbers through just cranking numbers. It's actually, he gives examples so that you can apply it to a live deal or thinking through a live deal. So if from that perspective, if you just kind of want to dig in from a numbers perspective, so far that's been the best kind of textbook to give a little background. Anytime you can apply it to a case study, a real life example, I think that's really helpful.
I'm going to use this as a plug for Coffee Connectors, because what we're hoping is that we can be that one-stop shop for a lot of you. And when we get off of this Zoom, we'll be reaching out to you with an email. You'll have an email address to reach out to. We want to be the ones that can help set you up with different folks to meet with, depending on what your interests are. And we're starting to build out a website that's got real content in it, so you can listen to stories from other people in there. And we'll start putting down some of these recommendations for books and sites to go to. So I am gonna, that'll be my final word. You've taken the first step, joining something like this, on your own, and taking the initiative is an awesome first step. And you can see from this panel, there's a really exciting careers out there and a lot of really impressive people that want to help you and have gone through the same process, have faced the challenges that it takes to get in, and want to lend a helping hand. And you really you really owe it to yourself to take advantage of that, because it can make a real difference.
Right. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank all of our panelists for agreeing to do this tonight. It's such an important deed. I call it a deed because it's something that is so close to my heart. And I didn't have this when I was coming up, first being a first generation, and then having a parent who was an immigrant. And so this to me is everything. And I just hope that all the knowledge that was given has been helpful to the folks who have attended. We will also have a copy of this recording for those who were not able to make it, so that this knowledge doesn't go away. It's going to be saved on that website that Dean mentioned. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining tonight. I hope you learned a lot. We see a lot of questions, so I know there's a lot of interest. And because of that interest, like Dean said, we will send an email out for you to be able to get in contact with us. And then you may be able to get in contact with some of these panelists. And so that's really the goal here. Not only these panelists, but so many other folks. As many of the panelists mentioned, we're all pretty connected. And so if you ask, you shall receive. And so please join Coffee Connectors as soon as you can, and we'll get that going for you guys. And again, have a good night and thank you for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.